Welcome to Biology 110, and in this video I will go over the course syllabus. It should be noted that you should read this document thoroughly because it's a contract between you and myself and how the class works. I will do what's called hit the highlights for this particular document. This is also located on Canvas, and I highly recommend you print a copy or read it through multiple times. So I am Professor Good, and I will be your instructor for Biology 110 Life Science. My office is located in room 321E on the East Peoria campus. My phone number is listed there. However, I am not on campus every day of the week, so if you want to get a hold of me, the best way is to email me, and I will get back to you shortly. My email address is agood@icc.edu. I will hold regular office hours in my office in room 321E using the dates and times provided. Each semester this may vary. For the spring semester, it is Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1. Please be sure to look at your syllabus, for example, if you're taking the summer course, because this is going to change. Again, the best way to get a hold of me is via email. When you email me, you must email me using your ICC email and not your personal email. By ICC policy, this is the only way that I can respond to your emails. In order for me to best answer your email, please provide the following information: your name, first and last, the name of the course, and your question. Also, please use proper grammar and not texting abbreviations. I have multiple courses such as Biology 110, Biology 210, Biology 140, etc. that I teach. So if your email says, hey, I'm not sure how to complete the assignment, I don't know your name, which course, or the assignment. The more information you provide in your email, the better I can serve you and answer your questions correctly. I will respond to your emails within 24 hours except for weekends and holidays. If none of my office hours are conducive to your schedule, please contact me and we can either set up a virtual appointment via Zoom or another time in person that fits both of our schedules. Listed here is the course description and the prerequisite. Please take a moment to read both of those. Next, we have the course level outcomes. These are the topics that I promise by the end of this course that you will have a good grasp of. Things like the scientific method and biological literacy. We will go through all of these through our various chapters and sections throughout the semester. Now let's look at what you need to purchase or what is required for this course. So the required textbooks for this course include the e-text, which is over here on the right, and it has kind of this brown moth on the cover. If you would like a loose-leaf version of that, you can purchase that either from the ICC bookstore or directly from McGraw-Hill. Since this is an online class, you will need some technology components. You'll need easy access to a computer. This needs to be a desktop or a laptop, not your phone, not a Chromebook. It needs to be an actual computer. The Surface Pros work, but most tablets do not work. You will also need an internet connection that is reliable, a web camera that has audio that is working. You'll need a camera to take the lab photos. A phone camera is sufficient for this. You will need to purchase a new lab kit. So if you've taken this course in the past, you would need to take or purchase a new lab kit for this particular semester. The lab exercises, as I scroll up, are going to be located on Canvas. You do not need to purchase this, and they are already on Canvas, and if you would like to print them, that is kind of up to your prerogative. The textbook is going to be what is called an e-text, and we call this inclusive access. So as soon as you click on Canvas, you automatically have the textbook. You will be charged using your ICC account after the refund date. So if you're saying, I didn't actually get charged for the textbook, you will, but it will just happen after the refund date. which you will see on the schedule at the end of this document. The textbook includes access to Connect, and Connect is where you will find the majority of your assignments, things like homeworks, quizzes, etc. The name of the textbook is Hofnagel's Biology, Concepts and Investigations. This includes Connect and Proctorio. Proctorio is the proctoring software that will be used for your tests and quizzes. When you register to Connect, you must register using the same name, first and last, that you used to register for the course. This way I can identify you on the course roster. You will be charged the fee for the Proctorio, Connect, and eText to your ICC bill, which is about $97. If you would like to purchase the loose leaf version, it is $40, and I believe there's also a used version, which is about half that cost, which is available through the ICC bookstore. If you would like to purchase the materials somewhere else, you can choose opt-out on the Canvas site. However, be forewarned, if you choose the opt-out option, you will be paying more for the eText and Connect. The eText and Connect alone are about $110 if you purchase them not through ICC. And if you include Proctorio, which is required, I believe that's another $15 to $20. So you would be paying about $25 more if you choose the opt-out option. So in other words, if you do nothing, you pay the cheaper price and you have all the supplies that you need. Now let's talk about the attendance policy. Since you're not attending in person, I'm going to take attendance based on the number of logins that you have per lesson. You must log in at least once per week to complete assignments. You can log in more than this if you would like. We will also take attendance by looking at your lab submission photos. In a typical face-to-face course, you would be attending lecture at least twice per week and lab once per week. So by having assignments due at least once per week and lab photos, this is how we will determine your attendance for the course. In bold is an important statement. If a student misses more than 4 of the required photos, so you do not submit 4 of the lab photos, the lab photos are required for the lab portion of the course. Then you will receive a failing grade for the lecture and the lab. So for the entire course, you will receive an F if you miss 4 of the lab photos. Keep in mind this does not need to be consecutive weeks. So if you miss lab 2, miss lab 4, miss lab 8, miss lab 10, etc., that would total up to 4 missed photos. Typically when you get to 3, I will send you an email kind of reminding you or giving you a warning that you can't miss any more. And then once we get past that threshold, then you have an option to either withdraw from the course or receive an F. It is your responsibility to keep track of the number of missed lab photos. They will be recorded as zeros in the Canvas grades site, so you can always have your grades up to date on Canvas. Also, if the lab photos are not completed, the lesson quiz becomes a 0. So if you see a change in that score, that may be because you forgot to submit your photos for that particular lab. So let's talk about never attender and non-attender. If you're listening to this Nearpod, you're obviously not a never attender because you are actually participating in at least the first assignment. A non-attender is defined as a student who has participated in the first 5 days of the course but stops attending. Anyone who does not log in for 7 consecutive days and does not communicate with me, they are considered a non-attender, and I will administratively drop you from the course. So communication is the key. This entire document is basically saying, let me know kind of what's going on. I understand that life happens, so if I know kind of that you are trying your best, but things are kind of falling apart, then we can work together to kind of come up with some solutions. The reason why attendance is so important is because it aids in your understanding of the material and your success within the course. So in order to do assignments, there are a variety of different assignments, and I'm going to go through on page 6 of this document the details. There are different kinds, things as Nearpods, homeworks, etc. And you should only complete the assignments after listening and doing the activities within the Nearpods. The one lowest lesson quiz is dropped at the end of the semester. So you basically get one freebie where if you didn't do so great or if you forgot it, I will drop that one at the end of the semester. Quizzes and exams can be viewed 1 hour after the due date. So let's say an exam is due on a Tuesday, and that means Wednesday you can go back in and you'll click view and it will let you actually see which questions you missed. Same with those lesson quizzes. You can go back in 1 after the due date. Most of the lesson quizzes are due on Mondays. I highly recommend that you go back into those lesson quizzes. It will not only show you what you missed, but it will also show you what the right answer is. I use the same question pool for the quizzes as I do for the exam. So you don't want to get something wrong more than once. So make sure you go back in and look at those. Again, that's 1 hour after the due date. Not 1 hour after you do it, but 1 hour after the actual assignment is due. For homeworks and all the other assignments, you can view them immediately. So if you've never taken an online class, you may be wondering, how do I actually learn the material without the instructor kind of in that face-to-face setting? So the way I do this course, the lecture material is going to be presented by something called Nearpod. Nearpod is free. You have access to it through Canvas. And basically what it is, it's going to be similar to being in a face-to-face classroom. So what I've done is I've created all of these Nearpods that have narration. So every slide, you should listen to the slide. And I provide analogies, I expand on the topics, I give examples, etc. And then as you work your way through the Nearpod, there's going to be animations and activities, things like matching, embedded little quiz check questions. They're just kind of a checkup question. And this is how you learn the material. In addition to the Nearpod, there's going to be a corresponding lecture notes, which is located on Canvas, that corresponds with the Nearpod. So you should either print out those notes or you can type in the fill in the blank part of the notes using the Nearpod as you listen and watch the Nearpod. This is the material for the test and quizzes. So if you're skipping the Nearpods or you're not seeing the lecture notes, then you're basically not attending the lecture portion. And the Nearpods are graded. So they are something that I highly recommend that you do for points and for comprehension of the material. This is where I get all of the information for the quizzes and exams. So by having those notes and the Nearpod, then you have the material that you need to be successful. The Nearpods are going to be 5 points per chapter. And at the end of this document, you will see kind of the schedule of when they're due. With the exception of 1 or 2 weeks, there's 1 Nearpod per lesson. But there's a few little changes to that towards the end of the semester. To receive your 5 points for Nearpod, you must have 100% completion. So it just should be noted, if you click on a Nearpod and then click out of it, it will show on Canvas that it was submitted, even if you didn't do anything. Submitted then is not the same as completed. Submitted just means I clicked on it. Completed means you clicked on it and you actually did all the activities. At any time, you can go into Canvas and see your completion amount. So if you've done half of it, it'll say 50% completed. If you've done all of it, it will say 100% completed. So in order to get your 5 points, I have to manually grade and look at those completion numbers. So I will put in the scores, those 5 points, based on completion numbers. Any Nearpod question that you miss, I deduct 0.1 point, so not a tenth, not very much, for every question that you miss in the Nearpod. However, you can go back and rewind that Nearpod if you get something wrong, and you can change it. If it's a multiple choice question, it will show you the right answer immediately. If it's an open-ended question, it won't show you the answer, but that's okay. So there's not a ton of those open-ended questions. Same with if it's a video and it's a multiple choice question. If you get it wrong, just rewind it and go back and answer it correctly. This makes sure that you're learning the material correctly as you're studying for those tests and quizzes. So that is the lecture portion. Now let's get into the lab. So this is usually where you kind of have some confusion. So you're not used to doing a lab at home, even if you've taken another online course. This is a little different, which is why this course is a little bit more intensive, because it's a 4-hour course in which we have lecture and lab. In the traditional setting, you would be spending about 5 hours a week just in lecture and lab, plus the time that we ask you to study outside of class. So this class is a little labor intensive because it's a lab course. So first of all, where do you find the lab materials? There's really only 2 lab materials, one of which is the lab exercises that we at ICC have created, and the lab exercises are found within the Canvas modules. The other thing that you need is a lab kit. You must purchase the lab kit from the ICC bookstore. They're between $30 and $40, and this is the only place that you can purchase the ICC lab kit. You will need this starting lesson 1, week 1, for inventory. You will also need it throughout the semester. At times, you will be asked to purchase additional items, specifically week or lesson 3, which are going to be listed on the announcements. I always send out things ahead of time so that you have a general idea about what is expected at least 1 week before you're actually going to complete an assignment. So make sure you check your email and read those announcements. I also suggest that you kind of look 1 week ahead under the lab activities as far as what supplies are needed. It's on that very front page, so that way you can be prepared for lab. If you don't do the lab, then those are zeros, and that counts against your attendance. If you and another person are sharing a lab kit, that is not going to be allowed for the course. So if you and another friend or a student in the course are both taking the course, you need 2 lab kits, 1 per person. You do your own experiment and submit your own photos. If you do not do this, this is considered academic misconduct or cheating, and you will receive a 0 for the lab photos, for the lab and lesson quiz. And if this is repeated offense throughout the semester, you will be either withdrawn from the course or you can potentially fail the course. It should be noted that once that lab kit has been opened, you cannot return it to the ICC bookstore. It actually has a sticker seal on the top, and it should say, if the seal is broken, you cannot return it. So make sure that you are confident that you're going to remain in the course before you break the seal on that lab kit. So let's talk about lab photos. And I also do this in the lab video that corresponds with this course. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights. So let's read the main bolded part. In order for me to know that you're actually doing the lab activity, I need evidence of that. And the evidence is for you to submit lab photos. So if a student fails to correctly submit more than 4 of the required lab photos, then the student will receive an F, failing grade, for the lecture and lab. In other words, for the entire course. For this course, every lesson has 4 required lab photos, each worth 1 point. So in other words, you have 4 points per lab, and those details are located within the lab exercise. If you do not submit your lab photos, then it's a 0 for the lab photos, so 0 out of 4, and a 0 for the lesson quiz. And that's ensuring that you're doing the information or you're doing the activities. The lesson quizzes contain 10 questions from the lecture material and 10 questions from the lab material. So that's 20 points that if you don't submit the photos, that's going to really hurt your grade over time. After you've submitted the photos, if there's any issues, I will provide feedback. In fact, even if there's not issues, I always provide feedback. So if you don't know what you're doing wrong, go to the feedback. I've typed in a little note like, make sure you don't have mirror images, or all the files need to be located in one document. So make sure you read what I'm typing in so that you don't continue to do it incorrectly. There's also a grading rubric for every single photo submission, so that will tell you how your points were scored. If the photos don't contain all the required components, then the grading rubric will tell you that, and I will type it in the comments at the beginning of the semester. If enough components are missing, then it's 0 points for the photos. you're allowed two warnings of incorrect photos. So beginning of the semester, I'm a little lenient because you're trying to kind of get the hang of this. But after those 2 warnings, then, you need to kind of be on board, reading the comments, email me, we can Zoom if we need to make sure you really know what's expected for those lab photos. Each lab exercise has the details for the lab photos. So most of them are going to require things like your name, the date. You're going to fill in some things, take a picture of that, or you can take a screenshot. If you want to print them, you can print them and handwrite the answers in, depending on what it is. Usually there's 1 photo per lab that has a selfie. In that selfie, we need your entire face. I am the only one that sees these photos, so don't worry about how you look. It's all good. It's just me and you looking at your photos. So all 4 photos need to be in 1 file or document, and it should be a PDF format. And if you don't know how to do this, email me and I can assist, or I can create a video if necessary. So 1 photo submission, so not 4 files. 1 file should be submitted. And there's a free website called www.ilovepdf.com that allows you to merge all 4 of those photos. You don't need to pay for anything. You don't need to log in. Just add all 4 of your photos into 1 document and then upload that 1 document. If you're writing in your answers and you're not typing in your answers, they need to be legible and you need to be able to read your answers. And even if you're taking a screenshot, it needs to be big enough that I can actually read the words on the page. You need all the required elements, which will vary from photo to photo. No mirror images. So I can't have the words backwards. I have to read your answers. So right side up, okay, and upload it in the order requested. So photo 1, then photo 2, etc. And then one more time, if you don't submit your photos, then your photo score is 0 and your lesson quiz score is 0. So again, that's going to add up quickly over time. So this sounds kind of daunting as far as the photos. Once the second lesson or lab is over, you kind of get the hang of it, but it does take a little bit of time. But contact me if you have questions. All right, so what's next? So this is basically the assignments. So we're going to assess you using lesson quizzes, student achievement evaluation. That's going to be the unit exam, smart book, virtual labs, etc. So here's the details on the exams. There are 5 exams total, 4 of which are unit exams, and the 5th is the final. The exams are going to contain multiple choice questions from the lecture material. I am not planning on putting lab content on the exams. However, it is often the case the lecture and lab information overlaps. So if we talked about the scientific method in lecture and we talked about the scientific method in lab, then you will be seeing it on an exam. And again, I do use the same question pools for the quizzes as I do for the exams. So in other words, if you go back and review those quizzes, that will help you review for your exams. The exam schedule is on the last couple pages, which we'll look at. They're going to open a minimum of 48 hours before the due date. Exams 1 through 3 are due on Tuesdays, and they're going to open on Fridays. They are 75 questions, 75 points, and you have 80 minutes. You cannot start and stop the test. So once you start the exam, you need to complete it. Otherwise, the timer will kind of count down. The best way to be successful is to study beforehand, be in a quiet environment that's distraction-free, knowing that your internet is working at its peak, and it will have a little thing that will keep track of your time. And because we're using Proctorio, you will actually see yourself during the tests or quizzes. So if that freaks you out, you can actually collapse the camera on your view. So I can still see you, but you can't see yourself. So if that's distracting, just collapse that. The exam 4 is actually due on a Monday versus a Tuesday, and the final is due on a Thursday. And again, that may change depending on the semester you're taking the course. So just always check that schedule and check Canvas for those due dates because those sometimes change slightly. The final exam is 150 questions over the entire semester. So we call that cumulative or comprehensive. It is just lecture questions, again, not lab unless there was an overlap. And you have 130 minutes for the final exam. The best way to learn the information in bold is to complete those Nearpods. You can rewatch them, study them, and fill in those corresponding lecture notes. So you want to have those notes for study purposes. During the exams, the only thing you can use is your brain, no other resources. So studying those things ahead of time is going to make you confident when it comes time to take the exams and quizzes. And then Proctorio is used to proctor the exams, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in this presentation. So what happens if you miss an exam, or even any assignment for that matter? Well, there's a little bit of leeway, just a little bit. So you have what are called tickets. So at the beginning of the semester, every student has 3 tickets. They're kind of 3 get out of jail free cards. And what they're going to do is provide extensions on assignments. So if you miss an exam, you can use 1 ticket to complete the exam. Now you only have 1 ticket allotted for an exam. So if you miss 2 exams, the second one is a 0. So don't miss 2. I always have the due dates on Canvas. I send you an email announcement ahead of time. And the day of the exam, I send you an email. So make sure that you're checking your email and those announcements for those exam dates and times. And very rarely, if never, do those dates change. So only if there's something, during COVID, some dates change, but that is very, very atypical. So make sure that you're aware that an exam is happening. So exams for the most part are going to open on a Friday. They're due on a Tuesday. Again, there's a few little exceptions to the rule. So if you forget, you have 48 hours from the original due date. So if it's due on a Tuesday and you're like, oh, I forgot exam 2, email me, say, I forgot exam 2. Can you open it back up? As long as you still have a ticket for an exam left, I will provide an extension. So that extension would be, if it's due on a Tuesday, it would be due Thursday at 11:59. So if you don't realize until Friday that we had a test, now you're kind of out of luck and you have a 0 for that exam. So make sure that you are aware of the deadlines. Be on Canvas, checking those dates, and checking your email often. All right, so let's continue with that ticket idea. So you have 3 tickets at the beginning of the semester. And if you need to use a ticket, you need to email me. So it's not automatic. So if you're like, oh, I forgot that exam 1 or exam 2, one or the other, you're going to email me and be like, can I please request a ticket for this assignment? And again, that's 48 hours from the original due date. A ticket is 1 per assignment, not per lesson. So if you had a bad week and you missed a smart book and a homework and a Nearpod and a quiz, that's 4 assignments, okay? Then you can use 3 tickets if you still have them available, but then you have no more tickets for the rest of the semester. So it's 1 ticket per assignment. And then once you've used all your tickets, and I keep track of that, then anything that you miss after the fact is a 0. So make sure that A, you're using your tickets wisely, and B, you're aware of due dates. And the schedule is pretty much the same after lesson 1. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're taking this in a 16-week semester, this schedule is always Wednesday is lecture material, Friday is lab material, Monday is quiz. So if you're taking this in an 8-week, it's going to be a little shorter condensed. It's usually Wednesdays and Sundays, but just be aware of those due dates. So you can use a ticket for any type of assignment. However, you can only use 1 ticket for 1 exam and 1 ticket for 1 lab quiz, or lesson quiz, I should say, lesson quiz, and 1 ticket for 1 lab photo. So let's say you miss 2 quizzes. The first quiz would be a ticket. The second, I would drop that lowest quiz. Or let's say during the semester, you're great on quizzes, but you missed 2 homework. So you could use 2 tickets on 2 homeworks. And you may not use a ticket on the final exam. So grades are pretty straightforward. All of the grades are always up to date on Canvas. The only things that I need to grade are the photos and the Nearpods. There's a few little discussion boards that I will grade, but there's not very many of those. So I usually have things graded very quickly. The policy says I have things graded within 1 week of the due date. I'm usually faster than that in case, life does happen occasionally, but for the most part, the Canvas grades are up to date daily. The grading scale is very straightforward. It's a 90, 80, 70, 60. And then other policies just goes through things like anything that's not submitted on time is a 0. I don't do, I forgot to do an assignment. Can I do it and get half credit? No. So use your tickets. Once those tickets are gone, then those are 0. So make sure that you're doing all of your assignments. All final grades are final. So make sure you have all your points in. So after, the semester's wrapping up and you're like, hey, can I do some extra credit? Can I go back and do those assignments? The answer is no. Also, those tickets cannot be used for retakes. So you cannot retake a quiz or retake an exam. If you didn't do well, then just study really hard for the next one or change your study techniques. Go to the academic support center. Come see me during my office hours. So you cannot use a ticket for a retake of an assignment. And then late withdrawal cards are not signed after the withdrawal date. And the withdrawal date is usually really late in the semester. I only round up at 0.5 or higher. So if you have a 0.4 whatever, then that is the lower of the 2 grades. So make sure you're getting all of those points. Right now, you have 100% in this class. Congratulations, you got an A. So in order to keep that A, you need to keep track of your assignment due dates and make sure you're doing all of your assignments. So academic misconduct or integrity is a lot of paragraphs to say, please do not cheat on exams and quizzes. So homeworks and smart books and Nearpods and all of those, they're untimed. You can go back and do them. You have unlimited attempts. You can, do them as much as you want. But for us to really find out what you know and what you don't know, which is those lesson quizzes and exams, it's going to use something called Proctorio, which you don't love, but it is what it is. So Proctorio is the proctoring software that it's included with Connect. You've already purchased it. You don't have to worry about anything on your end. And the very first time that you use Proctorio, it will ask you to do a pre-check and to load an extension. So I highly recommend, this is the thing that, besides the lab portion of the course, that gives you the most headache, that you use Microsoft Edge as your browser. It tends to work a little bit better than Chrome. So Chrome or Edge are the 2 options. You cannot use a Chromebook. It won't actually work on this typically. So the details for Proctorio are on the orientation module on Connect. There's a little 2-minute, maybe 3-minute Proctorio video. You're going to watch the video, then take a Proctorio quiz. It's only 2 points just to kind of get you familiar with Proctorio, so the points are low before you take the first real quiz, which is the lesson quiz, which is 20 points. So look at that. And here are some Proctorio kind of tidbits. So what happens is you are going to get all set up on Proctorio. You're going to need a student ID or a driver's license, just some form of ID. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's got your picture and your name. And you're going to show that on the Proctorio. And again, you can collapse that camera on your end if that makes you uncomfortable. However, I can still see kind of what's happening. I need to see your entire face, not just your forehead. And you may not use notes or any resources, no cell phones, no people in the background, etc., hollering out answers. So you need to be in a quiet location with just you and your quiz and your computer. So if I see you, suspiciously looking side to side or, at your lap because you got your phone on your lap or you've got a study guide on your lap, then it gets flagged. I view those reports, and the first offense, I kind of look at it depending on how obvious it is and go, okay, well, it looked like maybe you had some study aids and, don't do that anymore, basically. If I see it again and you're flagged for that, then it's a 0 for the assignment. And if it's something that I feel is offensive enough for an exam, for example, if it's just blatant cheating, then I will still fill out what's called a student of concern form, and it's submitted to the dean of students. And you could possibly get a 0 for the assignment and be withdrawn and get a 0 for the course or an F in the course. So just make sure quizzes, and exams, you're using your own brain only. You don't need any other resources. Now, I do understand that life happens occasionally. I've seen dogs, cats, loved ones come in not knowing you're taking a quiz or test and they start to talk to you. It will flag you for that. So just email me and be like, I'm so sorry. Someone walked in to where I was taking the quiz. They didn't know I was taking it. I'll review the footage and go, yep, you're all good. You're fine. So just make sure that you, again, communicate with me about what's happening. So where do you find your assignments? They're all located on Canvas. And again, you can review the tests and quizzes 1 hour after the due date. My role in the course is to keep you informed of the due dates and to have the Canvas site up to date, to have, answer your questions as far as emailing, and to basically provide the content that you need to be successful. So reach out if you have questions. And then this says, are you ready? So you may be thinking, oh my goodness, this class is intense. It is a little intense, but it does get easier as the semester progresses. So this just talks about an online course, the amount of hours you should be spending. If you're taking 20 hours of courses and working 40 hours a week, that's probably not going to work out so well. So make sure you dedicate a time and or days every week to dedicate to this course, so that way you can be successful. I would not try to attempt to do the entire lesson in one sitting. You can, but I don't recommend that. It's better if you kind of stretch things out a little bit. So lecture on one day, lab on the other day. I also don't recommend that you wait until an hour before the due dates to start working. That's also not going to work out for you. These assignments are going to take some time. So as I mentioned earlier, the face-to-face, they're in class about 5 hours a week, plus they're doing homework outside of class. So we expect you to spend about 10 hours a week on this course. So this is not something you can kind of just do in a short period of time. All right, so this is the list of all the different types of assignments and their due dates. If you're taking this again in an 8-week semester, this is probably going to look a little different as far as the due dates, but otherwise everything else is the same. And I've already gone over how to complete the lesson or lecture and lab assignments on a separate video. So I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights. So Nearpods is the class. That is the lecture part. They are going to be due on Wednesdays. And I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see the whole thing. Maybe not that small, sorry. And they are going to be not timed. You have unlimited attempts, and it's 5 points per chapter, or per lesson, I should say, because sometimes it's different chapters and different sections. Homework and Smart Book. So homework is after you've done the Nearpod and fill in the lecture notes, then these are questions to reinforce the topic. So sometimes there's animation, sometimes it's click and drag. And then Smart Books are basically have to do with the textbook. So this is how you can read the textbook. Again, you do have a textbook with this class. And this is how you can get to the textbook. For the first unit, these are graded, also due on Wednesdays. So again, all this lecture stuff is due on Wednesdays. And for the first unit, the Smart Books are graded. After that, if you don't like the Smart Books, you don't have to do them. They will be available as listed here for practice. You're like, I love the Smart Books. That's my best resource. They will be available for units 2, 3, and 4, but just for not points. So you can use them if you want them. And everything is due at 11:59 p.m. So then Fridays is when the lab assignment. So I kind of try to spread it out so that you kind of have some time. But again, you can do these anytime that you want, as long as it's before the due date. Everything except for the quizzes is open about 10 days ahead of time, sometimes 2 weeks. Quizzes are only open a week before the due date. So you can work a little bit ahead. So the lab photos I've already talked about extensively. Those are required to know that you're doing lab. And then we have virtual labs. So the virtual lab is kind of like a pre-lab. They are also going to be on Connect. They are due on Fridays. So for every lab, you have lab photos and those virtual labs. Sometimes instead of a virtual lab, it's a Nearpod. There's a couple of those, but for the most part, it's a virtual lab. And those are going to be worth 3 points per virtual lab, and the quiz, or I'm sorry, not quizzes. The photos are 1 point per photo, so 4 points per lab. All right, so once you have learned the lecture material, which is Nearpod, you've practiced doing your homework, and if you have a smart book, and you've done the lab activities, then you're going to take the quiz. So don't take the quiz before you have studied the lecture and lab material. So the quizzes are due on Mondays. So our class is going to run Tuesday through the following Monday. Okay, so if that confuses you, just think of it, we're always starting basically the new lesson on a Tuesday. So I give you that Monday for the quizzes, so that way you have time over the weekend to study and make sure that you're really comprehending the material, and email me, etc. So the lesson quizzes are 20 questions, 20 minutes. You have one attempt. No resources are allowed, just your brain. And there's one per lesson. You are going to have 10 questions from the lecture material and 10 questions from the lab material. And then last but not least are those exams, which I've actually already talked about. So most of the exams are going to open on Fridays, and there's a few little exceptions, which is exam 4 and the final exam. Most are due on Tuesdays, 75 questions, 80 minutes, one attempt, no resources. Proctoria are used for those quizzes and exams. And 75 points for the unit exams, and then the final is 150 points, 150 questions. So we'll look at that a little bit more as we scroll through. All right, so I'm going to pick up the pace a little because the rest of this is just kind of information that you can read in detail on your own. So here are the requirements as far as technology. If you need assistance, then you can always use any of these resources here to get assistance if you're having technical issues. So you are going to need a laptop or desktop. Tablets and Chromebooks are not compatible with all assignments, so do not try to do this entire class with a Chromebook or your cell phone. It will not work. You do need a web camera that has working audio, and you need your ICC email address to be working. So if you don't remember your login, then go to the ICC help desk. There's the information, and they can assist you. So remember, I'm a microbiologist, or actually I'm a biologist. So I have a bachelor's degree in biology. I have a master's degree in microbiology, and I am pretty good on all the content for this course. However, I am not so great with your technical computer questions, which is most of the emails that I get. So here's the list that I have. This is all of my bags of tricks. So if these things don't work, yes, you can email me, but I may not have a whole lot of other solutions. So if you can't get something to work, typically it's Proctorio. Clear your browser history, clear your cookies and your cache. Try a different browser. So Microsoft Edge works best. However, if it doesn't for you, then try Chrome. So Chrome and Edge are the two that you need to use. Use the Canvas site, not the Canvas app. So again, don't try to do these on your phone. And make sure you're logged in to Canvas using your correct email address, because sometimes you will get a message that says administrator has denied access to this. That's typically because you're accidentally logged in to a Gmail or a Yahoo or some email that's not compatible. So go make sure that you've got your right email address. So now that we're through all the hard stuff, how do you start? You're like, I don't even know. She said so many words. What do I do now? So here's what I would do. I would print the last few pages of this, which I'm getting to. So let me actually scroll to what I would print. I would print pages 9, which is, sorry for your eyes, 10 and 11. I'll go back to those in a minute, because that is the schedule and that's going to keep you on track. Very rarely, if never, do I modify or deviate from the schedule. So that's pretty much set in stone. Occasionally there's a change, but not very often. So I would print pages 9, 10, 11. Go to the bookstore, get your lab kit. That's the only place you can get it. And you do need it lab 1 for inventory. So go get that lab kit. Make sure that you have a working ICC email address. You're going to go on Canvas. You're going to register to Connect. To register for Connect, you can just click on the McGraw-Hill Connect or click on the first assignment. You can click on a SmartBook and it will ask you to register. It should not prompt you for any money, because we've already including that in your tuition or your ICC account. Then once you're on Canvas, go to the Start Here module and read everything. So here's the syllabus. Read all of the orientation materials, do the orientation assignments and the Lesson 1 module. So that's how you're going to start this. Work your way down the Canvas side. So here are some tips and tricks. So this is kind of the best practices, ways to make sure that you're doing things correctly. So log into Canvas often. I would say daily, if not daily, every other day. I would begin by either printing those lecture notes or typing them in as you go while you're watching those Nearpods. I've created all this content. This is not content that I pulled from another resource. I did it. So and I created the quizzes and I created the exam. So that's where your study resources are going to be. The lecture notes and the Nearpods. Read the textbook. If you like those smart books, you can continue after Unit 1. You have to do them for Unit 1. Complete the homework, do the lab activities, read the lab exercises, submit your lab photos, and do those lesson quizzes. And then best practices for study tips as far as exams. Just to make sure that you have everything ready to go. You've studied, you feel confident, you've got your student ID or a photo ID of some sort. It can be your driver's license. Make sure your internet's ready to go, etc. And then this is the page, or these are the pages that I mentioned to print. And if you don't want to print them, you don't have to, but it does kind of, tack them on a bulletin board on your refrigerator. It kind of helps you remind yourself, oh yeah, I've got an online class I need to do some homework for. So how this works is I've got the lesson with the week. And again, this may vary from semester to semester. I've got the topics, and I do want to make a little comment. So we may not do the entire chapter, or we may do more than one chapter, depending on the lesson. So for example, lesson 1 is actually makes this chapter, this section. So it's just section 1.3. So that is it. It's just the scientific method. So depending on the week, depends on what sections, and it may be a whole chapter, maybe parts of the chapter. So we're going to begin at the top. So here's the orientation materials. That's getting you familiar with this course. That's what you're watching right now. So everything is always due at 11:59, always, always. So this orientation Nearpod, that's what you're doing right now. Because there's so much, it's 10 points, because I really want you to have a clue. And I know it's lengthy, but it's important that you have a good understanding of how this course works. And then you're going to watch the proctoral video and then take the proctoral quiz. That's 2 points. And again, these due dates may vary, so look at your syllabus. So every semester, the syllabus is going to change a little bit, depending whether it's fall, spring, summer. So look at your particular syllabus, and it will go for the information for your class. So the first week only, because I give you a little extra time to get yourself organized. First week only, all the things are due on a Sunday. But you can do them ahead of time. You don't got to wait till Sunday. So it's a Nearpod, and a homework, and a smart book, and the virtual lab, which is the tutorial of how to do virtual labs, and the first lab photo. Those are all due on Sunday. You don't have to wait until Sunday. You can get started early if you would like. And then Monday is that first lesson quiz, which is lecture and lab material, 10 points from lecture, 10 points from lab, for a total of 20 points. Then after that, we kind of get into the groove of the normal schedule. So for example, lesson 2 is what is life? And so it's sections in chapters 1.1, 1.2, 3.1, 3.2. So it's just those little pieces. And then we get into the normal routine of Wednesday is lecture, so all the lecture material. So a Nearpod, a smart book, a homework. And then this week, probably only, sometimes I throw in at the end of the semester, but probably just the beginning of the semester, we do have a discussion board so you can introduce yourselves to your classmates. Fridays is when lab is due. And again, you don't have to wait until the day of the due date. You can do it a little ahead of time. So we have a virtual lab and a photo, meaning lab photos. There's 4 photos. And then Mondays, you would have that quiz. And then for that second week or second lesson only, it would be that discussion post. Here's the refund date. So again, that's going to change from semester to semester, but that's when you will see after that date your charge for the Connect, eText, and Proctorio. So after the 31st or whatever the date is, you will see that charge. All right, so then lesson 3, and I'm not going to go through all of them, I promise. This is really where we kind of get into typical. So again, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday. So Nearpod SmartBook homework, that's all the lecture. And then this week we do have 2 virtual labs and photos, and then the quiz on Monday. Our first exam, so again, look at your schedule because it may be slightly different. I list all the sections, all the content. Due on a Tuesday, opens on a Friday. 75 points. And then what you're going to notice is starting Unit 2, so now we're on Unit 2, we lose those smart books. So you still have access to them. They're just not greatest. If you like them, do them. They're just 0 points. If you don't like them, don't do them, and it's all good. So after that, Wednesday, lecture, Nearpod homework, Friday, virtual lab photos, Monday, quiz. And that's the rest of the semester. So as I work my way through this, I'm going to keep scrolling. Sorry. As I do that, we see the refund date. And again, every schedule may be slightly different. And I just want to point out at the very end, there's a slight change because of the way the end of the semester just kind of works out. So the last lesson, there's an hour, I think it's actually an hour and 10-minute long video or Nearpod. That is the lab. There's no lab photo. There's no virtual lab. So a little less on that one. And then because of the way the semester ends, you have something due, meaning that quiz on a Sunday versus a Monday, and then an exam, which is a pretty quick turnaround. And that's because of the way that the calendar falls. And then your final. Exam 4 is not the final. Let's just say exam 4. Sorry. That's not the final. It is a unit exam. And then you have the final. So again, you can work ahead so that you're not feeling the pressure of kind of getting things in so quickly. And then I have the total number of points in the semester. That sometimes does change slightly, a little bit here or there. And there are some extra credit opportunities often offered during the semester. It is not like 100 points. It's usually about 10 to 15 points. So don't bank on that to change a letter grade, but there's a little bit. And on the last page, I just have what are called helpful links. So this is really going to provide some resources. So academic support, advising, access services, whatever you need. There's, counseling, all kinds of good things. So testing center, if you need those. So I hope that was helpful. This is how the course works. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions, and I'll be happy to help. Happy studying!